Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always exciting to be back.
So today we're diving into a book that's had a pretty profound impact on how a lot of people think about money.
I think that's an understatement.
Okay, all right, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
It's Your Money or Your Life
Right.
by Vicki and Joe Dominguez.
A classic.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, when I first heard the title, I thought, another budgeting book.
Right. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, but this is so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. It really challenges you to rethink your entire relationship with money, to see it not just as dollars and cents, but as something far more significant.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So what is this radical new perspective on money?
Well, they encourage you to see money as life energy, as the hours of your life you've traded to earn it.
Whoa, life energy. That's a pretty powerful way to look at it.
Right. It really makes you stop and think about the true cost of your spending.
Yeah, because we all know time is precious, but connecting it so directly to our spending, that's a game changer.
Oh, it is. And that's what makes this book so impactful. It's not about deprivation or strict budgeting. It's about awareness and intention. It's about realizing that every time you spend money, you're essentially spending a portion of your life.
Okay, so how does this money is life energy idea actually play out in the book?
Well, it forms the foundation for their 9-step program to achieving financial independence.
9 steps.
Okay.
That sounds like a lot.
It's a journey for sure. But it's not just about retiring early. It's about reaching a point where your investments cover your living expenses, meaning work becomes a choice, not a necessity.
Okay, now that's a goal I can get behind, freedom to choose how you spend your time and energy.
Yeah.
But 9 steps, where do we even begin?
Well, the first step is all about tracking your money and your life energy. And this is where things get really interesting because they have you calculate your real hourly wage.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah.
You factor in like commuting time, work-related expenses, even the cost of that extra coffee you buy to power through the day.
Exactly. All those hidden costs that we often don't even consider. And it can be eye-opening.
Yeah, you might think you're making a decent hourly rate, but when you factor in all that, the number can be surprisingly low.
I remember the first time I did this exercise, it was like a punch in the gut.
Oof. Yeah, I can imagine. It really makes you think twice about those impulse purchases.
It does. So once you've had that wake-up call of calculating your real hourly wage, what's next?
Well, let me guess. Step 2 is where the real budgeting starts.
Not quite. Step 2 is about tracking every penny you spend.
Every penny. Really?
Really, and don't worry, this isn't about becoming a penny-pinching Scrooge.
Okay, good, because I do enjoy my lattes.
As you should. It's not about deprivation, it's about awareness, about shining a light on your spending patterns. Because once you see where your money's actually going, you can start making conscious choices about where you want it to go.
So it's less about feeling guilty and more about understanding where we might be mindlessly leaking life energy.
Exactly. It's like turning on the lights in a room you've been stumbling around in the dark. Suddenly, you can see everything clearly and make informed decisions about how to navigate the space.
That's a great analogy. So we're tracking our spending, becoming aware of our habits, and then what? Do we start cutting back on everything?
Not necessarily. That's where step 3 comes in, reflecting on your spending.
Okay, reflecting on my spending. So I'm guessing this is where we start analyzing those spending patterns we've been tracking.
Exactly. And this is where you start aligning your spending with your values.
So it's not just about cutting back, it's about asking yourself, does this purchase truly reflect what's important to me?
Exactly. It's about being intentional with your money. Are you spending on things that bring you genuine joy and fulfillment? Or are you caught in a cycle of consumerism, chasing things you think you should have?
Okay. That's hitting a little too close to home. I mean, we've all been there, right?
We have. It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle. But this book helps you break free and start making choices that truly align with what matters to you.
Okay. I'm liking where this is going.
Yeah.
But how do we actually break free from that cycle? Where do we go from there?
Well, that's where we get to one of the most fascinating concepts in the book, the fulfillment curve.
Oh, yeah. I've heard whispers about this fulfillment curve. Fill me in.
Well, the fulfillment curve basically illustrates this idea that more spending doesn't automatically equal more happiness. In fact, after a certain point, acquiring more stuff can actually lead to less satisfaction.
Wait, so you're telling me that buying a bigger house or a fancier car might not actually make me happier in the long run?
It might bring a temporary boost, sure, but research has shown that happiness tends to plateau after a certain level of income and material possessions. True lasting fulfillment often comes from experiences, relationships, personal growth, and contributing to something larger than yourself.
So it's not about denying ourselves nice things. It's about understanding that true happiness comes from things money can't buy.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the difference between fleeting wants and genuine needs, between impulsive purchases and investments in experiences that nourish your soul.
I love that. So where does this fulfillment curve fit into the 9 steps? How do we actually start making choices that align with this idea?
That's where step 6 comes in, minimizing spending to increase fulfillment.
Okay, minimizing spending to increase fulfillment. That sounds almost like a paradox.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not about deprivation. It's about consciously choosing to spend your life, energy, your money on things that genuinely matter to you.
So how do we figure out what those things are? How do we differentiate between those fulfilling experiences and the things that are just momentary distractions?
That's where the reflection from step 3 comes back into play. By understanding your values and analyzing your spending patterns, you can start to see where you might be leaking life energy on things that don't truly align with what's important to you.
No, that makes sense. But what if you're struggling to make ends meet? What if you're already cutting back as much as you can, but you still feel stuck? Does the book address that?
Absolutely. And that brings us to step 7, maximizing your income.
Okay, maximizing income. Here comes the side hustle lecture.
Not at all. It's not about grinding yourself into the ground with a second job or working longer hours.
Okay, phew, I was a little worried there.
It's about aligning your work with your values.
Aligning my work with my values, what does that mean exactly?
It's about finding work that is both fulfilling and fairly compensated.
So it's not just about earning more, it's about finding work that brings you a sense of purpose and satisfaction.
Exactly. Because when you're engaged in work that aligns with your values, it feels less like a chore and more like a contribution. And that can lead to greater happiness and less dependence on money for fulfillment.
Hmm. This is making me think about all those times I've stayed in jobs that drained my energy just for the paycheck. What if there's a way to earn a living doing something you actually enjoy?
That's the beauty of this approach. It encourages you to see your work as an expression of your values and a source of genuine fulfillment, not just a means to an end. It's about reclaiming your time and energy and directing it towards something that truly matters to you.
Okay, I am so on board with this. So we've covered steps 1 through 7, but I know there are 9 steps in total. What are we missing?
Well, before we jump into the final 2 steps, which are pretty impactful, I think it's important to take a moment and really let these first 7 sink in.
You're right, that's a lot to process. We've gone from viewing money as just dollars and cents to seeing it as life energy. We've talked about tracking our spending, aligning it with our values, and even finding work that brings us joy. That's a pretty profound shift in perspective.
It is, and it lays the groundwork for the transformative steps that are still to come.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. But before we dive into the rest of the 9 steps, let's take a moment to reflect.
I hope you had a chance to really let those first 7 steps sink in.
You know, I did. It's amazing how much our perspective on money can shift when we start seeing it as life energy.
Right. It's not just about numbers anymore. It's about making conscious choices about how we want to spend our time and energy.
Exactly. And speaking of those 9 steps, we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger. What are those final 2 steps all about?
Well, step 8 is all about taking action and starting to build your path to financial independence.
Okay, step 8, taking action. Sounds like things are about to get real.
They are. It's called accumulate capital.
Accumulate capital. So is this just a fancy way of saying start saving money?
It's definitely about saving, but it's also about shifting your mindset from being a consumer to becoming an investor.
So instead of just stuffing cash under my mattress or, putting it in a low-yield savings account,
Right,
that
exactly.
you're talking about actively putting that money to work.
Exactly. It's about creating a cushion of investments that can generate passive income, eventually covering your living expenses and leading to financial independence.
Okay, so we're talking about investments now.
Okay.
This is where I start to get a little intimidated.
I get it. The world of investing can feel really overwhelming, especially if you're not familiar with all the jargon and strategies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where do you even begin?
Well, the book actually does a great job of breaking down some basic investing principles. They emphasize low-cost index funds as a simple and effective way to build wealth over time.
Okay, index funds. Got it. So step 8 is about putting our money to work, making it work for us rather than the other way around.
Right. It's about building that foundation for financial freedom.
Okay, love it. So what about step 9? What's the grand finale?
Step 9 is all about transforming your relationship with money.
Transform my relationship with money.
Okay, now that sounds a little woo-woo.
It might sound that way, but it's actually incredibly practical.
Okay, so what does it actually look like to transform your relationship with money?
Well, it's about shifting from a scarcity mindset, where you're constantly worried about not having enough, to an abundance mindset, where you trust that you have everything you need.
So it's about moving away from that fear-based mentality around money and embracing a more positive and empowered perspective.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that money is a tool that can be used to create the life you want rather than something that controls you. Okay, I can see how that would be a game changer. But how do you actually make that shift? How do you go from feeling stressed about money to feeling empowered by it?
Well, it's a journey, and the book offers a lot of practical advice and exercises to help you along the way. A big part of it is about aligning your spending with your values, which we discussed earlier.
Right. So it's about being mindful about where your money is going
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring that it reflects your priorities.
Yes. And it's also about recognizing that true wealth isn't measured by your bank balance, but by the richness of your experiences, the strength of your relationships, and the impact you have on the world.
That's so true. It's easy to get caught up in the comparison game and think that happiness is about having more stuff than everyone else.
Hmm.
But ultimately, it's about living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
Exactly.
Right.
And financial independence plays a big role in that.
Yeah.
When you're not constantly worried about money, you have the freedom to pursue your passions, spend time with loved ones, give back to your community, and create a life that truly aligns with your values.
I love that. It's like that saying, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy freedom, and that's pretty close.
I like that. And I think your money or your life really drives home that point. It's not about becoming a millionaire. It's about creating a life where money is no longer a source of stress or limitation. It's about reclaiming your time and energy and directing it towards what truly matters to you.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. So we've gone through all 9 steps now. We've talked about tracking our spending, aligning it with our values, maximizing our income, and even transforming our relationship with money.
Hmm.
It's a lot to
It
digest.
is, but it's all interconnected, and each step builds upon the last. It's a journey towards financial independence and a more fulfilling life.
As we've been discussing these 9 steps, I keep thinking back to that core concept of money as life energy. It's such a simple idea, but it has such profound implications.
It does, right? It completely reframes how we think about every financial decision we make.
Exactly. Because it's not just about dollars and cents anymore. It's about how we're choosing to spend our precious time and energy.
And that's a really empowering realization because it means that we have more control over our finances and our lives than we often think.
Absolutely. We have the power to make choices that align with our values and create a life that is both financially secure and deeply fulfilling.
And that's what your money or your life is all about. It's a guide to taking back control of your finances and your life.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on a few key takeaways that have really resonated with me from this book.
Absolutely. I'm curious to hear what's standing out for you. Yeah, for me, it's the fulfillment curve. It really challenges that deeply ingrained belief that more money equals more happiness.
Right. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we need to buy more stuff to be happy, but this book really flips that script.
It does. It shows us that true happiness comes from things that money can't buy, like
Wow.
meaningful relationships, experiences that nourish our souls, and a sense of purpose.
Exactly. And financial independence isn't about having a ton of money. It's about having the freedom to pursue those things without constantly worrying about the bottom line.
As we've been talking, I keep thinking about that quote from the book where they say, the price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it.
Ooh, yeah. That's a powerful one.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the trade-offs we're making every time we spend money.
It does, because ultimately we're trading our time, our energy, our very lives for the things we buy.
And when you frame it that way, it really changes your perspective on what's truly important.
Absolutely. It makes you more mindful about your spending and more intentional about how you're using your life energy.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this book for me. It's not just about managing your money. It's about managing your life.
It is. It's about aligning your spending with your values and creating a life that is both financially sound and deeply fulfilling.
Well said. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of all the wisdom contained in this book.
We have.
Hmm.
But hopefully our deep dive has sparked some curiosity and inspired our listeners to explore it further.
I hope so too. Because whether you're just starting out on your financial journey or you're already well on your way to financial independence, this book has something valuable to offer.
It really does. It's a guide to living a more intentional and fulfilling life.
So to all our deep divers out there, we encourage you to check out Your Money or Your Life and embark on your own journey toward financial freedom, and a life you love.
It's a journey worth taking.